Shout out to the boys at Pernat's Meat Market. Nobody beats their meat. There are those who drive an ATV up a trail, get off and walk a manicured path to a ladder stand and hunt over a food plot on 1,000 acres of private managed land. And there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also the kind of hunter like me who likes to earn his bucks, likes to fight for them on an equal playing field. I look back at my season. I started back in early September, maybe even earlier than that if you want to include bear season, and I've been hunting 5 to 6 days a week, and it's been a long, grueling season. I had a bad season last year too, and instead of caving in like most people and saying, well, now I'm going to shoot the first shooter that comes in, I said, I'm going to shoot a big buck. I'm going to go even bigger. This swamp, this woods, they ain't doing it to me. I'll win. There were hunts that I sunk up to my armpits in muck. I broke a thorn off in my knee, had to cut it out with my gutting knife, and still limped to my tree stand and limped back out to the truck with a knee the size of a football. You know, when the wind burns your skin, you know, a lot of people can't take that. But I look at that as a badge of honor I wear on my shirt. I do all that with a smile on my face. Well, maybe more of a defiant smirk. If you haven't watched the video from last week, you should go back and watch it. Hunt, Hunt, Scout, it was called. In that video, I went out and scouted after a snow with Mario. I checked an area that had a big buck last year at this time of year. I'm really keying in on how these deer pattern the same areas, the same time frames, year after year after year.
We had about 6 inches of snowfall. Called Dan up on a Sunday and we headed out here to scout an area where we had had some action with some big bucks last year. In that scout, we cut across a large set of tracks. Dan posted a video on it, but 4-finger tracks and a long stride, probably 4.5, 5 foot stride.
Right. But that's how far between the tracks. I can't even step that far.
But the interesting thing about this is the tracks were following a human corridor, a corridor that we typically take when we traverse the property. So we followed these tracks to where they terminated and determined that they're probably bedding in an area that was in like the northwest corner of this property.
The other one goes off. Right to the corner, dude.
Yep. They're all coming off that transition.
I know where I'd be if I were you.
So we put a little bit of a plan together to set up and hunt that area. I put 2 sits in on it, hunting this cattail bedding area. I had doe come out on both sits, but no sign of the bucks.
So typically then we just give up and move on to find them somewhere else.
Right, right. So typically we do that. Then fast forward to, what was it, when did you shoot your doe?
It's only a couple days ago, I don't know.
Yeah, a couple days ago. We still had some of that snow on the ground even though we had rain, but there was snow holding up on the ground. So I get a call from Dan. I was hunting on another farm that's about 20 miles from here, and he said he had hit a doe. And he's like, kind of got a bad shot on it, but I'm going to back out, and do you want to come and track it later on? I said, sure. He goes, the best part about the story is when I backed out, he goes, I got back on the walking trail again, and lo and behold, there's a set of those giant buck tracks traversing the trail up and down in my boot tracks. So, and this is in the same spot that's adjacent to where we thought they might have been bedding.
And you got to remember too, that shot that doe caught down and came out at closing time.
Right.
So I mean, it was just after closing time when I walked on that trail, and that buck had been up and down that trail twice.
Yep, so indicating that that buck was moving in that area during daylight. And there was multiple tracks there too. That was the other interesting thing.
Yeah, there's other big buck tracks.
Right. But this one, this buck, significantly larger tracks.
That buck was teasing the big buck serial killer. It's probably not in his best interest to tease the big buck serial killer. If you watched last week's video, I ended it with these words. So doe down. Let's go get that buck. I wasn't sure which buck that giant track came from. I thought it was from the big 10-pointer. But that track was from an obvious mature buck, and that became my target buck. We were hunting in a conservancy, and the conservancy is split into zones. You draw for areas. And there's a lot of people that draw in there. Me and Mario got drawn in units that adjoin. And this buck was, it looked to us, was bedding right on the land border between the two units. It looked like it was going on to Mario's side. So Mario went in for the kill twice, never saw the buck. We later kind of determined that that buck was watching Mario. He was bedded close in there. When Mario would go in, he'd catch him. He was monitoring the human trail.
The plan and the setup for today was to wait for another east wind. The wind was west this week and it swung back northeast, and to try to hunt a spot where I could view that corridor as well as get a kill shot.
I didn't know when Mario could get out. He didn't know when I could get out. We had a lot of stuff going on this week, but our next hunt was going to be in there. Mario saw the right wind. He got off of work, ran out there. I didn't know he was there. I wasn't feeling good, told him I wasn't hunting. And I was sitting around the house thinking, you know what, I could be sick at home, or I could be sick in a tree. What the hell's the difference? I ain't wasting this day. And I went out and got in the tree. Now, because of where this buck was bedded, we circled all the way around the property. Mario had no idea I was even out there. I was going to hunt right on the borderline, up close to the bedding, but after seeing Mario's truck, I thought that might be a risky move, because if I bumped those deer, I could ruin his hunt, because they could be bedded on that edge. So I held back.
All right, January 13th. It's really quiet out here today. I got a northeast wind, so I'm monitoring this access corridor from the high ground where I think this buck is bedding. I got a pretty good vantage point about 75 yards away to where the first opening is to the corridor. Might take him a while to get here, so I'm kind of playing a little bit of a gamble. But I got a 30-yard shot right to one spot of the corridor trail, and then a 40-yard shot to the next spot. So I feel pretty good about how these trails converge right underneath me. So let me get you a look at what I'm dealing with here. So right out just beyond where that pine tree is, that corridor trail runs like this, and then it filters down through to me. If the buck runs the back side of these pines along the swamp, I've got a 30-yard shot right to this transition. I'm tucked up in one of these pine trees. That swamp transition right there is where the doe filtered out 2 weekends ago when I sat. So, those big tracks in the snow were cut right along this corridor. The night that Dan shot his doe. So I got up nice and high, and I'm hoping to see movement in here, at least get eyes on him. We don't have much time left, but gotta be able to make some moves, but also gotta be able to see where he's coming in.
That trail's got some big tracks on it, and coming in here back further on the same trail, there's some big ropes. But everything's so frozen, I can't see if any of it is fresh. So again, I don't have a lot of confidence. I got more confidence in the area Mario's hunting over here, and he's there now, so we'll see what happens. It's a nice night. The wind's a little less than desirable. It's kind of blowing like this, but it is what it is. Better get an eyeball on that thing pretty soon if I want to kill it. The season's winding down.
So I'm waiting, and it's dead quiet out. It's dead quiet. You can hear everything. Gets to right around, gosh, I didn't even check my watch what time it was, but it was probably right around 4 o'clock.
I think it was even earlier than that, probably like 3:30.
Yeah, 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I start to hear movement out of the bedding area. A steady hum of walking. And it's more than one animal. It just wasn't one animal. So I pulled my bow down, got it on my lap, I swung my camera around, started filming right when I heard the walking. And it's all coming from behind this pine grove. Now I can't see into the pine grove because it's super thick, but I can again see the access trails coming out. Well, after about 5 minutes, here comes one deer, pops out. I look, it's got horn. At this point, you know, those deer are probably at like 60, 70 yards or so. I need them to travel a little more south into the trails that are leading to me so I can get a shot on my first lane. So the first deer pops out. I look, I pop my binoculars up, I'm like, oh, that's a buck. Next one pops out. It's got white tines, a little bit taller, nice sized bodied deer. I'm like, oh, there's another buck, and that's a shooter. Well, then the third one pops out, and I think in total there were 4, but you know, everything started happening pretty fast then. The third one pops out, and I'm like, there's the target buck. His body was long. He turned his head and dipped, and I could see the heavy mane white beams. And he turned and he walked north, going north on that trail. So this all happened fairly quickly. It took them probably 3 or 4 minutes, and they crossed, you know, in front of me. They're traveling from west to east. So they crossed on that pine grove, and they're getting into where the heavy grass is. Well, all of a sudden, I hear this commotion.
Got me another one. Holy crap. Mario doesn't even know I'm out here. I saw his truck in the parking lot. He's hunting about 100 yards over. Wait till he hears this. Two old warriors met in the swamp today. Only one's coming out alive. Time to call the pallbearers. Wow, he's got a lot of mass. Oh, look at those giant feet. This is the buck. It's not the 10-pointer I thought it was, but this is the buck that was leaving the tracks. I got him. Wow, that's a massive buck. Look at that. Nice. Obviously mature. Look how big he is. That's the buck we're seeing the tracks from. What a long, grueling season. And a great way to end it.
Well, all of a sudden, I hear this commotion, which I know now was Dan's shot. At the time, I didn't know what it was. So I heard this crack, 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 crack. And a deer bust out, and a couple of the other ones got spooked, and they ran around right on the other side of the pine grove. So I'm sitting there like, well, what was that noise? Did they catch my wind? The wind was blowing over my shoulder, but it was really calm, and it was kind of shifty throughout the night. So I'm like, well, it's possible that they caught my wind. Well, then I catch moving again, and all the deer turned, and they started coming down the corridor right towards me. And they herded up right behind this little section of pine trees that's probably about 50 yards out in front of me. And so I'm waiting, and I can see one of them moving his head, one of the bucks, and I can see the rack. And behind him, I hear another crack. And then they spook a little bit more, and they start getting really antsy. And as it turns out, that was when Dan put a second shot in his buck. At that point, he was already on the ground, and I think he began to walk in the woods. Well, that spooked the whole herd of deer. Matt? Now again, I'd have to check the footage. I don't know for sure, but I think 4 doe, full speed, blew right past me. They came right to my tree, and trailing them, there was at least 2 bucks. One of them was a shooter, and there might have been a third. I turned, I got ready to shoot. I gave it a yell, and they bolted right past me. They held up behind me for actually a little bit, but I'm sitting in a huge pine tree, so behind me is just a wall of pine. I couldn't see behind me. And then my pocket starts vibrating like crazy. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, what made that noise? You know, what happened? And then I hear talking in that direction.
Got me another one.
So then I'm half thinking, well, is someone walking over there? Did a hiker come in? How did someone get over there and I not see him? And so then my phone starts ringing and I slide it out of my pocket and I see that's Dan. And I'm like, oh, he must have shot it. He had to have got it. I go, because that buck, the big one, the mature one, didn't run my way. All the other ones did. And sure enough, picked up the phone and...
Target buck down.
Target buck down.
Well, now I know what made all that noise. Dan's was hunting just up from me. I think he's got the big one down. I watched all 4 of those bucks come out of that bedding area into that corridor, and they angled to my north. And that big one went right over by Dan. I heard the shot and the crash, and then every single one of those bucks came running towards me. I couldn't slow any of them down for a shot. But Dan said he's got the big one laying over there. So I'm gonna get down while we got daylight and go check it out.
What do you think, Mario? We did it, man.
I think the plan came together is what I think.
Look at the mass on that thing, eh?
It's unbelievable.
You look at the length of this thing's body. This is the one that was leaving those long stride tracks. I mean, this is the target buck.
Yep.
Look at the mass on him. I mean, he's got a smaller width of a rack and the stubbier tines. I mean, they're only like 9 or 10 inches. But it's obviously an old buck going downhill. Look at this mass out here.
Yep.
I mean, this is as big as my wrist in here.
Yeah.
It's just so cool to get this done at the end here.
We got
January.
I know.
It was such a bad season, and I just couldn't get on the big ones and letting the little ones go, and finally it paid off right at the end.
That snowfall that we had put us on where these bucks were traveling and what bedding area we thought they were sitting in. And
Absolutely.
a couple little sits, and it got us general direction of where they were probably coming from.
What does it revolve around again? A day of scouting is why we got this buck. And
Yep.
you almost got him by your tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Can you see this, or is it too dark?
Oh no, I can see him.
He came in nervous as hell from you, and I knew something was up. He either got your wind or he saw you or something, and he was real fidgety. I didn't think I was going to get him because he was on pins and needles, and I moved once, and you know how that cold is when you're against a tree, you get that little snap,
Yep.
and he just froze, and I thought, oh man, he's going to bust me. And then when he got to a spot where I could pull the bow back, I got the bow back, and it seemed like he caught me getting the bow back, but I just waited, and he stepped out, and I just stayed on him. And this stuff is thicker than it looks. I don't know if that'll show up on the video, but it's just wires everywhere, and it's a good thing he came in broad daylight, because I had to wait for a perfect opening to shoot. And I think I might have still clipped something because I hit him real high and he dropped in his tracks, and I had to put one more in him. But what a way to end the season. Look at
What
that
a way.
nose on him.
Big, old, heavy racked, mature buck.
I've been having a horrible just couple of weeks here with everything that's going on around me, and this just makes my day. Maybe we're on a turnaround here.
Yep.
Yeah, this is great.
That is a beautiful buck. We put the one.
2 days left.
I know.
What do you got? A couple days to hunt.
Yeah.
But now you know what? We got a couple more targets.
And we know where they're coming out. And even though they spooked, they weren't spooked on where they came out. And I saw exactly where they crossed the trail.
You know what's interesting too? Ever since I got over here, all I can smell is rut stink.
Yeah.
I think these things were actually chasing does.
They, when they came out, again, I'll have to check the footage for exact count because they ran past me so fast, but there were 4 doe in front of 3 other bucks that were with him.
Okay.
Because
he smells like rut. Something must have came in heat late.
Yeah. Yep.
You can smell it. You can smell the hocks on them all the way from over here.
Yeah.
It smells like a bottle of Tinks.
They were bedding in that spot where we thought they'd be bedding.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, due to that scouting and getting their hoof prints in the snow, we knew we had an idea which way they were traveling. But we didn't exactly know how they were coming in and out of there. And I think to be able to have this sit, and Dan came in and he made a big loop around me, which in hindsight, both of us not walking the normal access route that we do, I think it played into these bucks.
I think they're watching the trail.
Yeah, feeling comfortable
Mm-hmm.
in where they were bedding. Because literally, they were probably only bedding like 50 yards off that
It's
trail.
so typical that mature bucks bed watching a human axis.
Yeah. And it's possible the other times that we came in here that they, you know, we'd walk in there like we normally do and they'd get up and sneak out on
Right?
us.
So the other 2 times you hunted, they probably knew you were there.
Yep.
So then when I came back through and the tracks were there, it's
Well-
because we weren't there that day.
Yep. We didn't walk in there that
Yeah.
day. Yeah. We weren't there that day. And so what's cool about this hunt is we specifically set up in both spots that we were in and the way that we accessed to pretend as if we weren't there,
Mm-hmm.
even though we were there. And those bucks felt comfortable and they came out in that same corridor that they have been walking day after day. And, you know, we were pretty close to doubling up. I mean, honestly, that one that ran towards
Matt?
me, if he was trotting, and I would have been able to stop him, it was a 15-yard chip shot, you know. But this is really cool. This is the buck that likely we got on trail camera from last year, and you know, we put him down. So
What an epic ending to a
yes.
long season.
It was been
For
a
me,
long
anyways.
season.
Your season's still got a week or so.
Yeah, I got some time left, but you know, this couldn't have ended better. I'm happy for Dan. It's just, you know, one of us got him, and this is what we set out to do when we go out and scout, and it worked out awesome.
Yeah.
It really did.
You can accomplish things when you put your mind to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, let's go get that other buck.
Let's go get that other buck. That's right. Let's do it.
Got him. Got me a possum. They run around all over the place out here. It's kind of cute, huh?
Yeah.
Tastes like acorns. Called me a possum.
We travel 2,000 miles from Texas for possum fishing.
Cute. Looks like me.